Hey everybody, Digital Doc here, and welcome to the very first ever episode 4 of Digital Doc Interviews. We have Dave Crouse here from Stack Up Games. Super excited for today's episode. Before we begin, everyone, please remember to like and subscribe to the Digital Doc Games channel. If you're listening on a podcast, make sure to give us a good thumbs up and subscribe. It helps a lot. We're an early channel, but I'm super excited about the traction we're getting so far. With that being said, hello, Dave. How are you?
What's up, man? Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing good. It's really good to see you. So, Dave, I want to just get things rolling. You're from Stack Up Games. Can you tell us a little bit about what Stack Up Games is?
So, Stack Up is a military charity. We support active duty and veteran service members through gaming-focused programs, all with a ultimate objective of trying to combat mental health problems, combat veteran suicide, all of that serious stuff through this medium that we all kind of have a passion for. We support U.S. and allied nations veterans through a variety of programs. Our four pillars are the video game care packages that we send to veterans in need, as well as to deployed service members overseas. We do air assault trips where we bring folks out to gaming events and bring them out to studio tours, stuff like that. We have local volunteer teams all over the U.S., but also a few internationally that just do good works in their communities. Represent Stack Up and outreach to other veterans. And one of the ones that gets a lot of attention is our Overwatch program. So through our Discord community, which is our communication hub with our community, is we have 24/7 365 mental health peer-to-peer mental health support. So sorry, words. But basically, we have a team of volunteers that are all trained up to provide peer-to-peer mental health support. So anybody at any time, if they're struggling and just need a listening ear, they can hop into our community and speak with somebody, and we respond in minutes. And it's something where we don't actually turn anybody away for that. So veteran or not, folks can
Wow.
come in and talk to somebody.
Wow. How long have you guys been up and running?
We launched in November 2015. Sorry, I'm looking for invisible answers. We launched in November 2015. So back then, really the focus was supply crates, care packages, air assault trips, and the Stacks program, which is those local volunteer teams I told you about.
Uh-huh.
Since then, we've grown, and I want to say we launched the Overwatch program fully in 2017, but it was really the beginning of 2018 where it really took the form that it still has now, and it's been going strong ever since. I mean, it was something that when we first launched it made a pretty big impact then, and it's just kind of grown since then.
Right, right. Well, we're going to get into every single, aspect of Stack Up. I want to dive into the programs and see, how you guys are helping veterans. But before we do that, so Dave, you yourself are a veteran of the Marines, is that right?
I am. That's right.
And I imagine that is not coincidence that you are now working at Stack Up. Can you tell us
No.
how one led to the other?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, as you mentioned, I'm actually a medically retired Marine. The eye patch is more than just a cool fashion statement in my case.
Although it is cool.
But yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for 11 years, and great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'd spent about 7 years of that doing administrative stuff. Nothing too terribly exciting. I wasn't doing any of the sexy stuff. Did a deployment in '06 to Iraq. Good time. But it wasn't until I went into the EOD community, which, if you're not familiar, or you got viewers, listeners who aren't familiar, EOD is Explosive Ordnance Disposal Bomb Squad. So I transitioned into that career field relatively late into my Marine Corps career. Did that for a few years and got injured while I was on a mission in Cambodia. We were taking apart some ordnance, some live explosives, and just kind of had a bad day in the office, which
Right.
unfortunately does happen in our community from time to time. And lost my hand, lost my eye, and a bunch of other injuries. Had a few other guys get injured. Thankfully, everybody lived. But where I'm going with that is, that landed me in Walter Reed, which is a big military medical hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. And I spent 2 years there, recovering, battling with my own challenges, kind of dealing with depression, and kind of really hit me in my confidence and my self-esteem dropped for a while. And I was dealing with a
Yeah.
lot of guilt and a lot of this, that, and the other, right? But for 2 years, I spent recovering from my injuries, figuring out what the next chapter of my life was going to be, and we could certainly dive as deep as you'd like to into any of that. I speak very openly about my time at Walter Reed, about my challenges, and about how I kind of dealt with different things. But what ultimately ended up happening was through my time there, I realized that really the cornerstone of my passion for military service was serving. I enjoy serving. I enjoy doing. I enjoy going to sleep at night feeling like I've done more for others than I've received from them. And a lot of my mental health struggle at Walter Reed was coming from the fact that for that 2 years, I was entirely dependent on the support of others, but I was kind of had been removed from the position where I was helping people. Whereas
Right.
here I was just kind of receiving assistance, and I appreciated it and it was awesome. It was necessary, but it was twisting me up that I couldn't be given back during that time. So received a lot of kindnesses from great organizations, from great people, wanted to find a way to pay it forward, and just happened to see doors opening in charity space, which is not something I ever thought I'd be doing. I never really would have imagined it, or never had really even considered it. But I'm a big gamer, I always have been. And while I was there, I had to figure out how to keep playing games missing a hand. So we're in
Sure.
visual medium, thankfully I can show it. And that's where I was at. So it's like, okay, I don't have a left hand anymore, but I'm certainly not going to stop playing games. So I need to figure out how to do that, which then led me to meet an individual who goes by name Ken Jones. He runs a great organization called Warfighter Engaged, actually. When I met him, I said, hey, look, I want to help you out. I really like what you're doing. I know my way around electronics components, soldering kits, all that stuff. Here's what I think. Here's what it seems like you're doing to make these custom controllers for folks here.
And is
Do I have
that's
the
what
right bit?
Warfighter Engage does? They make custom
Yeah, they
controllers.
do custom. They do custom adaptive equipment in general. So
Mhm.
gaming is one piece of that for a lot of folks. But what he focuses on is really just independence items, whatever that might look like for the individual. Sometimes it's workout gear or bicycles. If they want to go bike riding, things like that.
And did you meet
From
him through Walter Reed?
Yeah, he was there. He had come down to meet with some folks. He was working on a project for somebody, and just come down from time to time. And so I
Okay.
met him doing that because I heard about this guy who's doing that. I was like, oh, I want to meet
Right.
him because I have some ideas on how to get my situation sorted. And I want to talk to somebody who does that, because I knew how to fiddle with electronics. I knew how to put micro switches on stuff, but I wanted to talk to somebody who seemed like he would have more knowledge on it. So started talking to him, and then was kind of like, hey, you need a liaison down here. He was coming down from Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody down here who's here every day, who can keep his finger on the pulse and let you know when new folks are coming in that are going to have interest in what you're doing. I can take on some of the projects myself and build controllers, but if something's above my skill level, then I can reach out to you and coordinate. And so that's what I did for him for a little bit. And that was really, I hadn't given that any more thought than this is going to give me something to do while I'm here.
Right.
So while I'm still recovering, I can be doing something to benefit the other people here. And we had a lot of folks. One of the most awesome things, but also a really crappy thing, uh, depending on how you look at it, was I was in Walter Reed from 2013 to the end of 2014. So it was beginning of 2013 to end of 14, so just about 2 years.
And you
And
were you were there. You were living there.
I was there 24/7. Yep. Me, my wife, my one child at the time.
Wow.
Now I've got two. But so we lived there, and during that time, I needed something to keep me busy. I needed something
Yeah.
to give back. And so what I was going to say was the double-edged sword of Walter Reed during that particular time, during those 2 years, we had a very, very high customer volume, is how I refer to it. We had a lot of folks getting hurt, a lot of folks in the hospital. It was a packed house. I mean, those occupational therapy clinics were standing room only, and I'm not exaggerating.
Wow.
It was a packed house. But what was great about that was there were so many of us there to lean on each other. I came into Walter Reed and immediately was able to, see 3 or 4 different people who had similar injuries to mine, who are at various stages of their own recovery. And so it kind of creates this nice little roadmap. Everybody's unique. Everybody's going through their own unique struggle. But when you can see, oh, that person's got it worse than I do, and he's doing great. So cool. That's possible. That's achievable. But you start to see different levels of what's achievable. Things that you come in and say, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to do X again. And then you go down to the clinic and you see 3 guys that are, probably had a harder time getting back into that than you did, and they're doing it. So like, oh, okay,
Wow.
cool, this is doable. But crappy that we had so many people getting injured. 2012 was a rough year. Lost a number of friends that year, and then a lot more getting injured. And so the ones that didn't die out, who ran into bad situations but didn't die, landed in Walter Reed or Balboa mostly. And so there were a lot of us. So yeah, we had a lot of folks coming in. I was like, okay, here's a way I can be useful. Sweet, I need that, because I was having a hard time sleeping at night because I just felt like I was taking. So I started doing that, and that was going to be it. It's like, I'll do this while I'm at Walter Reed. So when I retire, I'm going to college. I'm going to go be a biomedical engineer. And I think you and I talked a little bit about this, because you also yourself, you did it. You've got a doctorate, right? Or you at least completed medical school.
Yeah. Got the MD.
It's like, yeah, you got the MD, but here you are making tens of dollars or zeros of dollars on the internet, because this is where your heart was, right?
That's right.
And so I did. I worked at Kemp for a while, and I ended up meeting, to get more into Stack Up. I met Steve Machuga, our Stack Up's founder, through what I was doing with Ken with Warfighter. Right. This random guy shows up to a Walter Reed Christmas party, and there's this great. We did Walter Reed put on a lot of cool community just things, or at least facilitated other organizations to put on these really cool get-togethers, just these nice morale boosting things. There's a Walter Reed Christmas party that would happen every year. This individual, I forget where he came down from, but it was a guy, another organization that put it on. Anyways, it was awesome. Every year was great. Everybody looked forward to it. So one year, this was 2014, December, I go down there to swing by the Christmas party, see what my buddies are up to, see who's out there as far as what organizations are represented, so I can see some of the people I knew. And there's this guy standing there with a freaking fold-out table in front of him, and it's just covered in freaking Xbox 360 games and PlayStation games and all this different gaming stuff. I'm like, who's this guy? Yeah. So I kind of went up and introduced myself. And again, anytime I see, especially, seeing that intersectionality of gaming and military, most military folks are gamers. I don't think that's a secret anymore. Like, people are aware of that, but you still don't see, I didn't know too many military guys who were diehard, passionate about gaming culture. Almost everybody I knew was super into gaming, but it's a whole nother level when you talk about somebody who's like a student of the craft, a student of the industry. And it's like, how many of these folks are, religiously checking the news for what's going on at studios, right? And here was this guy standing at a table full of freaking games, giving stuff away. And so I went and talked to him for a few. We had a great conversation about just gaming, about military, about all of it. I learned a lot about him. He learned a lot about me. And much like I had said to Ken when I met him, I was helping him pack out his gear at the end of the night. And I said, hey, look, man, I really, really like what you're doing. He had told me about these, he was shipping care packages out of his basement, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was really, really incredible. And so I said, look, I really like what you're doing. If you ever see an opportunity to kind of leverage my experience and maybe help you out, like, I'd like to do that. And that's just something that I'll volunteer my time for.
Right.
And so he ended up bringing me out to PAX South. That was January 2015. It was my first ever gaming convention.
Yeah.
I'd never been around it at all. He brought me out there and blew my freaking mind. Unbeknownst to me, weirdly, I went there thinking I was going to volunteer at the booth.
Uh-huh.
And I did. And I volunteered at the booth. I spent a lot of my time volunteering at the booth. We were 3 days into this convention. We were on like the last day of the convention when he finally came by. He's like, hey, man, he's like, why are you spending so much time at the booth? It's like, don't you want to go do something? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm here to work, man. I'm not here to vacation. Like, you brought me out here. I want to support what you're doing. He's like, dude, you're here. Like, you're our guest. You realize that, right? He's like, you're our VIP for this trip. I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently that was, what we now know as the Air Assault program, a very early form of that, where he had brought me out to roll out the red carpet for me, which he did, but it was never clear to me that I wasn't there to work. So I ended up spending the whole time working.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. We had a great time. And that was really kind of the snowball effect. And so we figured out a way to make it work, and boom, that's it. I came on, and my role within the organization is the director of veteran services. So I'm the director for all of our support programs. I have a peer, Sketch, we call him. That's pretty much what he goes by now. But he's our director of communications, and the running joke internally is that I'm the director of spending money, and he's the director of making it. The dynamic works pretty well for us, and then between me, him, and Steve form the core of the strategic level, and then we have a small team of managers and other leadership folks that really help make everything
Wow.
happen.
That's amazing. And it's so amazing to see how you took your passion and you just allowed that first for no pay, you just for volunteer, but you saw an opportunity. You're like, this is something I need to get involved with. And look where it led you. It led you to a full-time position doing something that you love and that you're
Yeah,
passionate about. So
and
that's amazing.
that's really what it came down to. Was I had to find something I loved. I
That's
was
right.
enjoying the college stuff, and I still actually my old biomedical engineering professor. I still see him. COVID has shifted this, but for the past 4 or 5 years, every year I go back up to Connecticut and I present a guest lecture to his students about
Really.
my electromyography and upper body prosthesis, which is
Uh-huh.
the technical terminology for how does my robot hand work.
Right,
And
right. I do want to go back and um, you describe yourself as a gamer.
Mhm.
Uh, were you a gamer before the military as well?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So how long
I
have you been gaming for?
so I'm 35, and I think my story probably sounds like most other 35-year-olds who would say they've been gaming their whole life. I think for me, I might have been 89 or something when an NES made its way into the home for the first time.
Right.
And my earliest memories with that, like some of my earliest memories from my childhood, involve that NES. And Duck Hunt, Mario, like all the
Sure.
staples.
Sure.
Everything you
Sure.
imagine that would be about to come out of my mouth is about to come out of my mouth, right? The Zeldas and all that stuff.
Sure.
I got particularly, I had a particularly keen interest in RPGs once I was old enough to grasp them. I remember playing Zelda very young and just, ooh, I can run around and I got this sword, right? And that's about as much as I understood about it. I don't even know if I was able to read that stuff when I first played it, but
Uh-huh.
I do remember making up my own stories with it because
Of
it was just like
course.
the first open world game from,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
it
I can
was
just walk around and,
revolutionary.
yep, I can poke
So,
things with this sword and make my own story up.
I mean, yeah, amazing. So I never played those games growing up. I don't know if I was born in '92, so maybe I missed the
Okay.
mark a little bit. But now through the Nintendo like digital console, I'm able to
Sure.
go back and experience some of these things, which is really neat. Um, so when you had your accident that landed you in Walter Reed, what was that like uh, to go from a place of being able to play games ever since you were a kid to now not knowing if you're going to be able to play games or
Mm.
not being able to play games, certainly in the way that you used to? What was that like for you?
Here's the one thing that I give that I'm willing to give myself credit for is I mentioned I'm impatient. I would say that that's probably a hallmark of me at times. I have a practiced patience, but I think, or like my natural state is like I'm always want to be moving.
Of
The
course.
other one is I'm extremely stubborn. And this is just like my entire life. I can look back and see like, oh yeah, I get it. I've always been ludicrously stubborn to a fault. It is what it is. But the greatest successes I've ever had in my life have come from it because I have a lot of perseverance. It's one of the few really really good qualities that I'm willing to recognize in myself. It's like, you know what, I'm far from perfect, but man, here's this one trait that I have that's really been a blessing for me is I've
Awesome.
never been willing to quit. It served me exceptionally well in the military, as you might imagine. It helped me a lot in my military career and led to me having a pretty successful military career for the time I was in. But then, waking up in the hospital, and I remember, I think it was probably like number 3 on the list. Probably like there was only a couple things I thought about before it, and it was the big ones, like all family, wife, kid related stuff. And then right behind that was like, oh crap, I got to figure out how to play games again.
Right,
But
right.
it was more of a like there was a moment of like, oh crap, 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 crap. But honestly, it didn't really last long because I was far less concerned with if I could do it again. My concern was almost entirely on just how am I going to make this happen, because I know I'm going to figure it out because I'm way too stubborn to let this to just let this be the end of that. Like, I will figure it out. And like I said, I had learned how to build IEDs and stuff like that
Right.
through my EOD training. So I knew how to play with micro switches. I knew how to play with electronics wiring. And I was like, I got to learn how to rewire a controller now. So it was more like, how long is it going to take me to figure that out? Because is this going to be something I can figure out in a couple of weeks and turn around, or is it going to be a while?
Right.
One of the first purchases I made was actually a Razer Naga Epic mouse. I still have it. It's in a drawer back here, but wanted just a 12-button thumb grid mice. And I was like, the very first thing is I had taken my laptop, I bought one of those mice, and I mapped freaking WASD and space and R and E, right? And I mapped the biggest keys to that thumb grid.
So just for anyone who
And
doesn't know, all these letters and keyboard spaces that Dave just described, these are instrumental to being able to play a game on computer.
Critical keybinds.
That's
critical
right.
keybinds for a PC game. And I started dinking around with trying to play Skyrim. I was like, I was like, and Bethesda games, this ought to work. Like the pacing, right? Then I can go from there and figure out how to do the more action-paced stuff. Actually, one of the first games that I beat with a fully modded controller was Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Wow.
And that was a challenge, but I made it through. It was not.
I know you get
pretty.
a lot of comments also when you were on Kind of Funny Games Daily, my favorite podcast show. And I was rewatching the episode with you just this past week, and I looked through the comments, and everyone is like, "Oh, everybody, Solid Snake!"
Yeah, it's Big Boss. And look, so I said gaming was probably like the third thing. I think probably number 5, because I think drumming was number 4. It was the important stuff, the really important stuff. Then it was the personally important stuff, gaming and drumming. And then behind that was like, you know what? I kind of look like Big Boss now. This is all right. At least I look like Big Boss.
That's right.
So yeah, Metal Gear is my favorite franchise, my favorite series of all time. There are a lot of, like, if I overthink it, I could come up with 10 others that are like right there with it, neck and neck. But I think pound for pound, Metal Gear is my favorite series. And so that was a silver lining about all this that I was able to identify very early in the process.
Right. So, I mean, let's dive in a little bit. Why do you say, you said your wife, your family, and video games? And to be honest, if I were to make a ranking, and certainly if something happened to me where I wouldn't be able to play games like I normally did, my ranking would be very similar. And I think for some people that might seem bizarre and maybe even like, come on, like get your priorities straight.
Yeah, is it that important, right?
Right. So why is video games number 3?
It's and I'm not standing by that as my official ranking.
Sure.
I have to give more thought to it.
That's right.
I got for posterity. I don't need this coming back. I don't need my wife watching this later and be like,
number 3, right?
Yeah. Number 3, like, no, but all right. So disclaimer aside, why is it the highest on my list of personal wants, right? It's the want is so strong. My relationship with it is so strong that it's borderline need, right? For me, I mean, gaming's always been my number one favorite hobby. It's my favorite passion. It's what I do more than any other. It's the most frequent thing that I do to relax, to relieve stress, to just have fun. And that's always been gaming for me. It's like it's a rock for me. It's my constant. So getting back the ability to do that was paramount for me. Again, which is why it wasn't it was a when for me. It's like, I will figure it out, but I don't know how long it's going to take. And gaming is, let's go deep, right? If I try and narrow it down and I try to get it into a sentence or two, gaming is a therapeutic outlet for me. Right. I'll put that bullet front first and foremost. Gaming is a therapeutic outlet for me, as it is for many others. I tell people all the time, it could be anything. It could be gaming. Maybe your outlet's golfing. Maybe your outlet is football or some other sport. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's movies. It could be any of those things. And if I found if I had that relationship with golf, you better believe I would have been out there figuring out how to be the best one-handed golfer I could be. For me, it's gaming, though. And what I personally love about gaming is it's interactive. It's got all the bombast, all the narrative power that a novel has, all the narrative, all the emotional power that a book or a movie has, except I get agency. A game gives me agency.
Yeah.
Um, and some games are great at taking you on a journey that they've determined for you, right? You look at the new God of War. That game is mind blowing. The new God of War had no right to be as moving as it was,
Yeah.
to be as poignant and as powerful as it was. God of War is not a narrative IP. It's never been narratively driven. The story was there to get you from one, bloody corpse to the next. And then here comes God of War. And that game just blows your mind. Or a game like the first time I played The Last of Us, and I was like, oh, okay, this game's going to make me weep in the first 15 minutes. Great.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
ride we're in, right? And then there's other games like a Bethesda title, right? Where it's like, no, this is your world. This is your story. We're just giving you a sandbox. We're giving you a toolbox where I can play any type of different character. So there's all these different experiences, but what they all have in common is whether you're on narrative rails or just given a sandbox to go play in, you get to decide your level of engagement. You get to have agency. And for me, that's important, and it's fun, and it makes these things last so you can replay them a million times or
Right.
have all this different stuff. And gaming is unique. I think it's the most interactive entertainment medium.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
it's got
And
a
do you
lot of
think
hooks.
that that is some of the reasons that is so popular actually in the military for people serving to play?
It certainly could be. I don't know if I've given that particular perspective a whole lot of thought. I mean,
I mean,
I
certainly I would
think
imagine the value of escapism, which a lot of people talk
escapism
about.
is important. Yes, as a form of escapism, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also
Yeah.
something you could take with you. You can do it by yourself. That's another big thing about gaming for me. I'm not a recluse. I'm a fairly social person. But I need checks and balances. The pendulum has to swing, and so I can go
Right.
out to a PAX well, and just to drive it more, like, let's say something non-gaming, right? I can go out and be in a very social environment, and I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to socialize. And then when that's done, that pendulum's going to swing the other way. And I'm going to want solitude, and I'm going to want
Right.
peace and quiet,
You
and
can
I'm going to
have
want
both.
time with my thoughts, and I'm going to need something to do.
Yeah.
And I like playing games during that time. So I think just personal opinion, why is it so big in the military? Well, I think certainly escapism is a factor. There's nothing like being halfway around the world, living in a shipping container, where everybody in a 300-mile radius is trying to kill you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's nice to be able to turn the Xbox on for a while. You know what I mean?
Can it
I
ever
enjoyed
have
that.
the opposite effect of playing a game that's maybe too close to home,
And
like a Call of
have
Duty?
it swing you the other way. Not for me personally. I've had friends and guys that I've served with that have mentioned, like, yeah, I kind of stay away from military shooters, or I stay away from this other particular type of game. Just like I'm sure there's plenty of folks out there with all sorts of different lived experiences that might stay away from a certain genre of games, or a certain
Right.
game. If they know a game has a particular type of content in it, maybe they stay away from it, right?
Sure.
So those folks are certainly out there. I think that the majority, weirdly enough, the majority of military gamers, even veterans who've lived through some pretty heavy trauma, military shooters are still probably like number one, in terms of popularity. Just anecdotally from my experience with Stack Up and what we get requests for, it's all Call of Duty, sports games,
Right.
Call of
Right.
Duty, Battlefield, sports
Right.
games. That's what the
Right.
requests are for.
And
Um,
that I think is really telling, right? Because those are your sort of AAA blockbuster moments, and
yep.
also, just get off your couch, jump and yell and scream and
Yeah.
cheer. I think that's telling for
It's got the competitive nature hard
right,
baked into it, so you can get
right.
around with your buddies and figure out who's trash. But it's also like, I mean, look, when you join, somebody joining the military, right? You're already like that fascination with firearms and the military kind of um, coat of paint, all that stuff. We already enjoy that,
Right.
right? So it's like, here's this stuff that I'm familiar with, and I, depending, especially like when you play like a Call of Duty or something, it's like these are things that I'm familiar. I'm familiar with firearms. This is content that I've always been interested in. I've always liked. And it's got the competitive edge, and I can just pick up and play. And it's you don't have to invest. You look at a game like Witcher 3, one of the best video games ever made, and that's objectively fact.
I
Don't at me.
still haven't played it.
Well,
I like so many times this past year when it came out on Switch, I was like, should I get it? And I haven't been in the right mood for it yet.
yep. No, well, exactly, right. And so that's actually perfect. You're about to help me illustrate my point.
You're welcome.
You can, as somebody who appreciates games, you understand that there's probably a really great game there. You haven't experienced it yet, and why haven't you experienced it yet? Because you know that game is epic in scale, in scope. You know that when you get into it, you better be ready to go for the whole ride,
Yeah.
because you're not going to be able to appreciate it fully unless you go the distance with it, and you know that going the distance with it is going to take you about 100 hours, and that's
Right.
a huge commitment. So I get it. So I don't judge people when they tell me that they haven't played it yet, because I do get it. You gotta a lot of things have to align to be like, yep, I can dive into this. A game
Right.
like Call of Duty, Madden, that's pick up and put down.
Pick up and play.
I can play it
That's
for
right.
10, 15
That's
minutes,
right.
or I can play it for 5 hours, and it just depends on
Yeah.
how motivated I am at the
It's
moment.
interesting. I mean, like right now, I have two games I would say that I'm actively playing, maybe three.
Mhm,
So I always play, whatever battle royale I'm feeling.
mhm.
Fall Guys is just came out. Have you been playing
You
Fall
and
Guys?
everybody else?
Have you played it?
Not yet, man, but I
Come
know it's
on,
coming.
man.
My
You got
well,
to jump on Fall Guys.
my kids are with their grandparents this week.
Okay, now's the
And
time.
as soon as they get back, I think that's when it dropped, because obviously like
Okay.
that game has me playing that with my kids written all over it.
True.
So
True. I
I
played it
want
with
to
my wife, which is
been
like
deciding I want to save my first experience to be able to share
I
that
love
with
it.
them and their first experience with
That's beautiful. That's
it.
beautiful. So that's what, and then the other one is Ghost of Tsushima.
that's
And
that's going to be my Witcher 3,
right.
right? Like,
But that's the problem is
I
I'm
want to play
playing
it.
through it, and right, I want to continue, but you know, I got my wife and I got my job, I got
Yeah.
my daughter and we have another baby
Ah.
on the way, and it's like, when am I going to actually be able to sink into this? So yeah, different experiences. Fall Guys is an excellent one for like I'm going to pop in for 15 minutes and get out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, my two, well, really my one big game right now is I have fallen very deeply back into the rabbit hole that is Destiny. So I'm a
Okay.
big fan of the game. I've been playing for about almost a year.
Yeah.
I've been out of Destiny, and I jumped back in on a lark about a
Right.
month and a half ago, and now here I am where it's the game that I'm playing, and I'm getting ready to jump back into the Final Fantasy 14 rabbit hole as well. We just got
Okay.
a big patch, so that one I'm more consistently in, but I've been out of that for a few months.
So
I basically, the
um
last patch I did the main stuff, and then was waiting for this one.
right, right. Yeah, I have that one also, but I wasn't able to get into it. But other than going down that rabbit hole, I think this is a good point to transition. We were just talking about the Army and the Marines and military in general and how they play and relax or escape with games.
Yeah.
So this connects nicely to Stack Up, and that I think very much is in line. I think with the care package program where you send large boxes of consoles and the newest games and all these things to military bases. But I also have seen you talk about going back to Destiny, the idea of playing online with a buddy and the things that come out just while you're moving around the maps shooting
Yes.
aliens, the things you
Yep.
end up talking about, and even some therapeutic mental health topics
Hmm.
that come out specifically when playing a game. Can you talk about that
Yes.
experience for you?
Yep. And I know I probably talked about a little bit on Kind of Funny, so you may have heard me say some of this. But yeah, so the founding kind of, so I talked for sorry, I'm trying to choose my words well, because I don't. This is too important for me to just word vomit. When we started the Stack Up Discord community, the entire freaking purpose of why get community game nights going, right? Be intentional. What is our goal? Why do it? Like, is it cool to just have a place for folks to get together and game? Of course, that has value in and of itself. But what do we really want to get out of that? And the reason for that, getting those community game nights, getting that stuff going, was because our whole purpose as an organization, we only lifted the mental health veil. We only pulled the curtain back on that this year, I think, or maybe end of last year. Up till then, we were always we were a stealth mental health charity. We didn't wear the mental health on our sleeve. And the reason that we didn't do that was because our whole purpose was we wanted to reach the guys like me who needed it, who needed somebody to talk to, but didn't know if they were going to feel comfortable reaching out to a mental health provider about it. We wanted to hit folks where they were at. It was like, if we can leverage gaming to get past the defensive line and establish a connection with somebody, then maybe we have an opportunity to impact their mental health. Right. That's not to say everybody we interfaced with needed mental health support, but certainly a percentage of them could benefit from it.
Yeah.
You talk about supporting, veterans who've been through crazy stuff, sending care packages downrange, all that. It's always been about mental health.
Right.
We didn't want to scare people away.
Right.
Because we start talking about, hey, we're a mental health charity, and it's like, oh, well, if that's what they're there for, I don't want to parade for you. I don't want to be your poor vet that you helped out.
Right. And it's that delicate road of how do you show that games and gaming has more, that there's more to it than just entertainment.
And that's it. And we needed people to understand, particularly the veterans that we want to be there for. We needed them to understand that we're coming from a genuine angle. We are genuinely gamers. We genuinely give a damn about you. We're not just here to give you to provide mental health support so we can go talk about how great we are. We wanted it to be organic. And so our gaming community stuff was all built around the idea that if we're just getting game nights going and people are showing up and playing games together, eventually those of us that have something weighing on us, eventually we're going to feel comfortable enough and it's going to come up in conversation. And it does. It absolutely does.
Why do you think that is? What is it? Is it because you're all together? Is it because you're fighting for a common goal?
I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah.
Disclaimer number 2 for the podcast. But my thoughts on this, and I think there are probably some studies that show this, maybe not, if not necessarily through gaming and through something, but gaming is a distraction. When you're distracted, you're not thinking about the defenses you've put up around your story, around your mental health, around your emotions. You're thinking about playing the game. You're thinking about killing pixels. And when you're engaged in that kind of an activity and you're talking with a buddy, especially a buddy who maybe has been through some of the same stuff that you have, or you're gaming under in a stack up community, right? And this is a community where if those things come up, you're in a space where people can relate to it. And I've dealt with it even as the director of these programs. I remember I was running a lot of game nights back then myself, trying to generate momentum so that way the community would see it happening, get involved, and then go lead themselves, which is what our community leads the game nights now. But back then I was doing it, and I led Battlefield 1 because that's what the guys in my community were playing. Guys and gals. I say guys in a very non-gender specific way.
Sure.
BT does. But so that's what the guys were playing. They're playing Battlefield 1 at the time. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm playing, I guess. And I had a buddy of mine, not military related or anything, but just a good friend of mine back home who died from a heroin overdose. Or I think it was a heroin overdose. No, it was pills. He was pills. He had been freaking struggling with some stuff, some life issues. He and I hadn't spoken at the time, I think probably in like 2 or 3 weeks. We used to play Final Fantasy together. And we just coincidentally hadn't spoken in a couple weeks. And then I found out that he had overdosed and killed himself.
Hmm.
Which not the first time that's happened in my friend group, not the first time that I've dealt with that back home. Certainly not I've dealt with in the military as well. But it was done now. He was gone, and I was trying to, as many folks have had to deal with, everybody's got their own story. Here I am now trying to process that. Here's my buddy. 2 weeks ago, we were playing Final Fantasy 14 together. Now he's gone. Did he ever think about hitting me up? Did he know that I'd be there for him? All that kind of stuff. And I was just struggling with it. How does this relate to the Battlefield story? Well, I didn't freaking feel like playing Battlefield that night. I didn't feel like putting on my game night leader face and being like, hey guys, let's all freaking get some Battlefield. We're going to mobilize the community, have a great night. I didn't want to do any of that crap. I wanted to just chill, process, and process in solitude as I'm more accustomed to doing when this kind of news gets to me. But I didn't want to let the community down. I was real close to bailing on it, but I had a couple people, a couple of the regulars reach out and be like, hey, we're doing Battlefield tonight, right? And I was like, damn it. Yeah, I'm going to be there, man. We're doing it.
Right.
And so I'm running this freaking game night. And I got a buddy, Omar. He's another Marine EOD tech, retired himself. We met at Walter Reed. And I freaking played myself. I walked right into my own trap that I had helped create with Stack Up. And where it's like, I was not planning to talk about it. I wasn't planning to bring my stuff into this because I'm trying to lead this. I'm trying to foster this community for others, which it seems obvious. You can't lead others where you haven't been and lead by example. But at the time, it really felt like I don't want to dump this on these guys. I want this to be a place for them to do the dumping if they need to.
Sure.
But it just freaking happened, and we're freaking playing Battlefield, and all of a sudden, I'm just like, you know what, guys? Man, I got really got something that's weighing on me, and I want to talk about it for a minute. And we just did it. We talked about it, and I talked about how I didn't even want to run the freaking game night.
Right.
Because I hadn't talked about it with anybody all day. I mentioned it to my wife. I said, hey, Mike, that was the guy's name. I said, Mike died today. And she didn't really know him, but she, understood what it meant for me. And I told him all of it. I said, dude, I haven't been talking about it to nobody. I hadn't planned on talking about it, but Here I am talking about it. Sorry, but now that I've opened the gate, I might as well tell you what's going on. But it started off as just a slip.
Right.
And so that was really it was perfect. I mean, that's what that was there for.
Right.
Otherwise, if I hadn't been playing the game, if I hadn't been focused on the game, I would have had all the mental energy that I needed to guard that.
Mm-hmm.
But I let the shields come down.
And these games, especially a lot of these online ones, Fortnite is a big one, especially in the younger community. But they're virtual. They're areas, sure, there's gameplay and there's objectives, and you want to shoot the bad guys with other people on screen. But there are ways to virtually hang out with your friends, and a lot of kids that play Fortnite and adults too, use it in that way. So the next thing I want to ask is I guess that third pillar of Stack Up, which is the air support. Is that
air assault program? So it's supply crates, air assaults, the stacks, and Overwatch program.
I think that the air assault program, it highlights another thing, and it's like you said in the beginning of the conversation. It's different, if not bigger, than just playing video games.
Yeah,
it's diving into the video game culture and the video game community, which is a astonishingly supportive community in many ways. It has its issues, has its toxicity.
No, it does.
Issues also.
Everybody does.
Right. But
this has been a great community, though.
Yeah, and that's so go ahead. I mean, that's the whole aspect, I think. What is it like to take these veterans and bring them to the community? I mean, how is the community helpful in that way?
Yeah, so I don't have a head count on it, but there's a few key components, ways that I feel like the air assault program is impactful. Why do these trips matter? The first and easiest one, so we can just get it out of the way, is it is very much like a Disney World type experience, right? These are cool events that people people who are into gaming, for the most part, only hear about.
Right.
They know these events happen. They see, 100,000 people, tens of thousands of people at these events, but not everybody goes to them. I was a hugely passionate gamer, and I never thought I'd be at a convention. So it's not, unless you grow up maybe in an area where it's in your town, or you've got a buddy who is crazy and travels to all of them. I imagine most gamers don't ever make it out to one. So having the opportunity to say, hey, yeah, you're a veteran, you're big into games, great. You want to go out to PAX? That's, for a lot of these guys, it's like a borderline bucket list type item if you're a big gamer. So it has just on all just the face value stuff. It's really cool, right? It's a really cool experience for them. But behind that is, we're trying to, bring them out into this community that you wouldn't expect necessarily to be super supportive of what you're doing. And so it blew my mind. So many freaking cool people who are just as passionate about games as I am, but way more knowledgeable. Oh, and bringing these folks out there, and it's how many of these people really just are thrilled at the opportunity to open the curtain a little bit for a group of veterans.
Yeah, right.
They love it.
A really
they
special
love doing
thing
it
for them as well.
So yeah, and that's it. And that's that part. The fact that the developers many times are getting something uniquely cool out of it. I didn't pick up on that until I'd been in the industry a couple of years. Until I had a relationship with somebody, I was like, dude, like, no, this is an honor for us. I'm like, oh wait, you're not just saying that. Like, you honestly feel that way? Awesome, cool. Glad to know you're getting something out of this, because for me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, these folks are amazing, and you get to bring these guys out, and they get to have those moments where they get to meet the people that make their favorite games, and it turns out they're not just suit and tie wearing assholes. Like, these are real people who are super passionate and care as much about doing this for you as you care about getting the opportunity to be there.
Right. Yeah, and that's awesome. I've never been to a convention yet. I went to my first digital convention since of COVID. I got to go to GDC digitally, which was good enough. But I would love to go and just experience that community for myself, which I'm just starting to dive into in a more real way. So that's awesome.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what I found. What I learned very quickly: a lot of the folks that we get nominations for the air assault program, much like myself, get out of the military and really, really miss having a connection to other veterans, being around them from a day. I'm lucky. I get to be around military veterans and military community all the time as part of my job now. But for a lot of the folks that I met when I was at UConn, the veterans group at UConn, one of the number one things I would hear guys talk about is how much they just miss being around other veterans. So for a lot of these guys, they got out, they did their time, they served, went back home, and that's it. I haven't hung around with other veterans in years. I've been told, I get these stories all the time. And so we bring them out to the air assault trip, and not only are they getting the first two things I talked about, but for 4 days, 5 days, they get to hang out and bond with other military guys that have similar backgrounds. And it is amazing. I constantly, anytime we bring a new staff member on or somebody notices, like anytime somebody gets a chance to see it for the first time, they tell me, it's like, I can't believe how quickly you guys just snap in. You guys talk to each other like you've known each other for years. And it takes like 15, 20 minutes, to get there. Maybe a day. A day is, and then that's it. And then, these guys meet on day 1, and by day 5, they're family.
And it has to just be that shared experience, right? That has to be what's piecing it together.
100%. I can put, if you served in any branch of the military for any period of time, I can put you in a room with anybody else who's ever served in the military. And this generally transcends borders, international border lines too. I can grab a Canadian veteran or an Australian veteran or a UK veteran. I've done it. We've done it through this program. Put them in a room with a US veteran. Any two veterans in a room together, they immediately, there's a short list of shared experiences that they already have. It's why
That's awesome.
You can see videos all over YouTube, World War II veteran and Afghanistan, Iraq veteran sit down and have a conversation.
Amazing. Amazing.
they're saying the same crap
Wow.
because it doesn't change.
And it highlights just this thing that I'm really passionate about, which is what we've been saying, shared experiences, and that I believe is the key to empathy,
Yep.
which is such a difficult concept. It's not an easy thing for someone to experience or feel
No.
empathy, and
No.
if we can, as a society, as a community, if we can find ways to have as much shared experiences as we can, or um, you know talk amongst different groups, and like you said, really realize there isn't a difference between us. Maybe you're a veteran of World War II, maybe you're a veteran of Iraq,
Yeah.
but there are shared experiences and grounds for similarities. Then that's how we come together, and that's how we empathize with people. I think
Absolutely.
that if you can even get a fraction of that, of the experience you're talking about from a video game where people are doing the same things and fighting
Well, no,
for a
you're
same goal,
nailing it. You 100% nailed it. It's about shared experiences. And
right?
get veterans in a room and they can connect with each other 100% of the time. We've got a lot of civilians in here. Our community is really diverse, very,
Yeah,
very diverse. You won't come into our community, and unless somebody's talking about their military or non-military experience, you won't know what their background is. You
right,
can't come
right.
into our community and assume that the person you're talking to is a veteran or a civilian. But you know what? These guys who they can come in and everybody can talk about gaming.
Seriously, I mean, everything you're doing, everything you're saying is so true and is so amazing. Big thank you to you for your work at Stack Up. A huge thank you to you for your service in the military. If people want to get involved with Stack Up, how can they do that?
Yes. The website is www.stackup.org. Really simple. You can go there, and typical website's got information on all our programs. What are we about? It'll tell you, our staff is on there, and you can learn a little bit more about us. And you can actually send us an email directly from the website, and it comes to us. We're a small team, so if you send an email about me, or you're interested in getting in touch with me, well, that email is gonna go to me, and you'll get a response from me. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. We're most active on Twitter when it comes to social media.
Yes.
And it's our account is at stackup.org, DOTORG. Obviously, can't punctuate your Twitter handle. So
Right,
it's stackup.DOTORG. And those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of us. Our Discord community is also discord.gg/stackupdotORG. And you can join our Discord community. And we're all in there, and we're all reachable. You can just come in and
awesome.
be a part of the community. We
Yeah,
have a good
yeah.
one.
I think I'm joining that community, so
Do it.
I'll see you
I
there.
expect you. I'll be watching.
Dave, thank you so much for coming on.
Dude,
I'm
thank you for
excited.
giving me an
Yeah,
outlet to ramble for 2 hours
this is a
almost.
channel of
It's been a
rambling.
while. Good.
we
Good,
we
because
welcome rambling here.
yeah, well, you got what you bargained for today.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming along. Until then, game